Now, both of the presentations were quite contrasting, but they had some similar ground. They worked together. So very, very interesting in implementing AI within business. And thanks again for your insight. So now what I want to do is invite our speakers back to our panel for a live Q&A. I believe we have a lot of questions which we really, really want to get out there. And we want responses from Katie and Sebastian. So let's start with Katie's questions. So the first question we have is, Katie, is there a code of conduct for use in AI in its different forms? Somebody has said, given businesses are increasingly dependent on machine learning algorithms, how do you see the need for algorithmic governance playing a role during model development or validation?
Really good question, actually. There is a code of conduct which was developed by the House of Lords. It's 2018, so it's I think it's still very relevant, and it covers a number of areas around AI shouldn't be vested with the intelligence to potentially turn on the human beings. It talks about protecting communities, families, and allowing everyone to flourish mentally, economically. It's a little bit of utopia, but it's a really important guideline, and there are 5 of them. So I would encourage you to check that out. It's needed. I think it's really, really important. You know, what you're saying here is, as I mentioned, the people that are doing the coding globally need a code of practice, but that isn't going to happen because we're at different paces, we have different politics, we have different regimes. Nationally, it needs to happen, and internationally it needs some kind of treaty, Geneva Convention, that kind of thing, but it isn't there yet. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Katie. It's definitely the grey area that needs work on, continuous work and a lot of investment. Next to the next question, what do you think is inhibiting enterprise adoption of AI, particularly in the UK? What is it?
Again, a powerful question. Sometimes it's about fear of, like I put in mine about burying your head in the sand and being in your comfort zone and being overwhelmed by all of the scaremongering that you had in that kind of peak of inflated expectations. So sometimes it's not really knowing where to start and having a fear, how do we move forward? Sometimes it's about not having companies' data ready and in order. For a lot of people, it's what we just described in the answer to question 1. It's the lack of regulation, the lack of the trade bodies and the whole kind of their industry sector being geared for it, and seeing that many others, I think there's quite a piecemeal approach to it, and you've got the innovators who are slightly ahead in financial services, some in telecoms and in functions like marketing, but still we're not yet at that kind of I don't think the affordability is there yet, and I don't think the understanding and the lack of trained people. So actually there's a shortage of the machine learning and the data scientists, and there's a bit of a brain drain out of the UK into other countries. That's a factor. Sorry, that's a quite complex answer, but there are many factors that come into play there.
That certainly there are, and also your scorecard you sort of explained eloquently. That's probably a very good place to start, isn't it, for this?
Definitely. Yep.
Over to the next question. Does great data translate to a less private world? With these great ideas of how AI can be used in businesses to make things better, how do we protect our data from greedy businesses and marketers? Sorry, you are a marketer, but it's the question. For example, Google. So marketing is key, important, but over to you.
Yeah, it's such an important topic. So thanks everyone for amazing questions. I'd like to say it won't happen, but we all know it quite likely will. GDPR has a clause in it around explainability. Many organizations do seek consent. But again, the regulations are not protecting us, and there are greedy companies, and there will be organisations, even some of the big ones we know have had scandals in recent years. I'd like to think that the regulators and the trade bodies can get together and have the protection in place, but I do fear that there could well be a few more scandals in the meantime. But I do, on the whole, feel very positive about when we do give consent, what wonderful benefits we can get back from the AI. But I do, again, I've seen an amazing article in the New Statesman about basically giving up on our privacy. So it is a real concern, yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie, for those really deep and realistic answers. So now what we will do is we'll move on to Sebastian. And so our first question, Sebastian, is given the democratization of, I believe it's data science technology, how do you recommend organizations deciding what to use and avoid the, oh, look, new shiny thing temptation to use new data tool sets, using something which is tried and using versus using tried and tested methods?
Sure, no, that's a really good question. It's not really, I don't think it's a very difficult one. It already depends on the hierarchy within your company and who is making those decisions. I've worked for companies in the past where the CTO would come in on a regular basis and says, we need to deploy this, we need to use this, we need to do this, to jump from the last sales conference that he went to where he was wowed by a vendor and offered the world. I honestly believe everything is trial and error. If you're serious about moving into different new technologies, it's always great to run a proof of value with the partner. You could run a short one, you could run a longer one, but the main point is to do it. See if the investment of what you wish to basically push forward with is valuable for yourself. For some months, I mean, I've done 2 proof of values last year, and they were both for 12 weeks. And really, it's a case of if it's going to work, it's going to work by the end of those 12 weeks. And if it's not, it doesn't really matter how much money we're going to put around it. We're not going to really see the benefit in the time frame that we need to, and that's really important. There's a lot of tools out there that people can input into their organization, but they're not going to realize that return on investment within that financial year, which a lot of people will turn around and bin as being unsuccessful, but you might see it in 2 or 3 years, so you have to plan for that. So again, as with a lot of things in technology, it's trial and error. Get it in, trial it, fail fast. If it works, go ahead with it. If it doesn't, get ready to pivot to the next thing, and try multiple things at once, but just don't go overloaded. There's a lot of really good sales bands out there promising the world with a lot of these AI solutions, and while a lot of them are very good and very competitive and should be explored, we need to sometimes be a little bit resistant to some of them and just do the due diligence to make sure they're right for your business.
Thank you, Sebastian, for those great tips. And back to, it's almost like your organizational knowledge, tap into that and see what's right for you as well, in a nutshell, isn't it? Let's go on to your next question. How do you effectively combine AI with BI, business intelligence? I mean, you've got your data hat on as well. So
there's harmony between the two, Kulvinder. It's a really good question. Thanks for asking it. It's harmony between the two. It feels I'll go on a limb here, but I very rarely hear BI as much. I hear AI spoken about more, because it feels like AI is the evolution of BI, in the same of words. Obviously, BI tools are very core. I've worked with many of them, from Oracle to ERP to SAP, and they're core for a lot of the larger businesses. But it feels very much a step change to, I mean, it's business intelligence tools and there's artificial intelligence. They're all giving intelligence, but they're using different methods to do this. Obviously, AI is taking the data and applying it in a certain model to give you possibly at certain times predicted outcome to said environment or said user case or said question. BI is looking at said data, taking that data and giving you also an answer to the same question. So you can definitely compare the two. But I think AI is going to give you the next answer and the next answer past what BI can possibly offer you, because of the way some of the AI tools operate and how they're more thinking towards the future state of some of the questions that you're asking.
Okay, thank you for that. Some great. So the clarity of AI and BI and what it means to you is really important. So I'm going to ask a question to both you and Kate, to yourself and Katie, that our attendees have asked. It's about for startups. What are the laws and regulations for adopting AI? Because it's a new field for them as it is. What are you, any quick tips on that?
Katie, after you.
There aren't many, to be honest, at the moment, specifically for startups. At the moment, there are guidelines that are quite broad, like the ones that I mentioned, and slowly industry bodies, I'm referring to British Retail Consortium, the Association of Accounting Technicians, they are starting to come out with guidelines, but that part of the world, that part of the work is really, really in catch-up mode. I spent 10, 12 years regularly advising on digital marketing, and more often than not, I was on BBC TV and radio, and it was nearly always this kind of a question, and the same seems to be happening. People are catching up slowly with the law and the regulation and the guidelines, but of course there are other laws that govern what you do, whether that's communications laws or privacy and so on, and they all still are very, very relevant in an AI world, but specific to AI, not much out there at the moment.
And to you, Sebastian?
No, I'd say the same. I'm very much obviously on the larger side and not as close to the startups that I would like to be. I'm doing some angel investing, but that's totally separate. But I think the barriers to entry for any of the startups, there are no barriers if you're able to get the platform in and you can try. I think it depending on what sector you wish to deploy the information to, but it should not be anything that would stop you adopting, trying, and running those MVPs that I mentioned before. Go for it, totally.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your presentations and answering these really, really detailed and urgent questions, and really pressing questions that most people have about AI in business for today. Thank you again. Stay tuned for more, and in the meantime, please stay safe and look after yourself, and thank you for being part of this today. Thank you. Bye-bye.